So glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And Jim, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Zohran Mamdani, but he's not really the focus of our crazy martini today. Jon Stewart. Oh my word, what he said about Mamdani, if you haven't already seen or heard it, just absolutely ridiculous. We're also going to be taking a close look at one of the things Jim wrote about today in the Morning Jolt, and we're not really hearing it anywhere else. And that is some pretty sobering news about the different technologies that China is merging right now. And it's not for the betterment of the United States, I'm pretty sure. But first, Jim, we're going to go back to the government shutdown. Nothing's changed since yesterday's news. I think there was another vote, but still the Democrats aren't helping Republicans get to 60 in the Senate. And so we kind of go through this Groundhog Day every day until the pressure just becomes too great. But one of the things we've seen now in the last week is Democratic messaging that stinks, but they keep using it, particularly the word leverage. I don't know what consultant told me to use the word leverage. It really doesn't come across as very compassionate when they use it. But hey, it's blowing up in your face, I think, so keep using it. But here's kind of how this started last Wednesday when the House Minority Whip, the House Democratic Whip, Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, basically started this all off by saying, yeah, people are going to be dealing with a lot of pain, but, we got to do what we got to do.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leverage times we have.
Yeah, when you say, I don't want you to suffer, and then you follow that with but, it's probably not going to go over too well. Then there's Chris Coons, who the media loves to pretend is a moderate, because he speaks in very mellow tones, but his voting record is pretty far left as well. He was on C-SPAN and basically says the same thing.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage. And although a very unpleasant tool to use,
we're still going to use it. And then there's Sheldon Whitehouse, always a favorite here on the Three Martini Lunch ever since his disgraceful performance at the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. He was met in the hallway at the Capitol yesterday by a reporter named Nicholas Balassi, who was basically saying, why do you think you need to use this leverage right now?
Why are working families the leverage the Democrats need to get Obamacare fixed, to get the Republicans to fix Obamacare? Why is that the place you guys have to go that far?
It's the only lever we have. And frankly, it wouldn't be a lever at all if Republicans were being reasonable and doing exactly what they should be doing for the sake of their own constituents, so many of whom depend on the Affordable Care Credits.
So, lever.
Get into that elevator.
I think it's lever. He says lever. Maybe it's a New England thing. I don't know. Jim, they think this is supposedly winning people over. It really comes across as really cold. And the more they use it, I think the more it's hurting them. And the unions are turning on them. And I'm pretty sure that people not getting critical benefits soon are going to be turning on them too.
Greg, this is always going to be a tough message to carry. But I really think one of the worst possible messengers would be Senator Sheldon I'm sorry, White House, but we all know the Whites Only Club that he was a member of, allegedly up there in Rhode Island. I would want to say, not only are we getting questions like this, I think Jake Tapper a couple of times on CNN has, pointed out to lawmakers, well, if you want to reopen the government, if you vote yes on the continuing resolution, that reopens the government. You can keep debating or arguing about the premiums for Obamacare that we discussed yesterday, but this. And they get really angry when he points that out. It is fascinating to watch seemingly every Democrat sort of attempt to Jedi mind trick. There is no such thing as the filibuster. The Republicans control the Senate. There's no way that you don't need 60 votes to bring a continuing resolution to the floor. These are not the droids you're looking for. It's not, it is just flat wrong. And I think that there are enough members of the mainstream media who we rip on, deservedly so, on this podcast on a regular basis. But I think this is too much 2 + 2 = 5 for even a bunch of regular correspondents. Not all of them, not nearly as many as we'd like to see. But I think the tone of this questioning is, you keep telling us all the Democrats like to emphasize food stamps get cut off starting November 1st. Air traffic controllers are saying they're having manpower issues because people are calling in sick. Today is October 29th. Every federal worker is either staying home or has worked without pay for 29 days. earlier in the month, they got like a partial paycheck for the part of the month part of the pay period they worked, and they didn't. Then they're going to get a no pay period for that second one. I kind of ask how many listeners, how many, like 2 weeks, okay, maybe you can go without it for a while. Once it gets to a month, it gets a little bit tougher because, your mortgage is still due. The grocery store still wants stuff. Halloween's coming up. Holidays are coming up. Like the expenses don't go away. And the attitude of Democratic senators is, well, you just got to take it. You're just going to have to take that hit, government workers. We've done a lot for you. Now you got to suck it up and do it up for us so that we can get this. We can ensure that you can keep getting premium payments if you're more than 400% above the poverty level, which I think we discussed yesterday. I think a whole bunch of people would kind of dispute whether that really counts as poor. So, I'm surprised they're going with this. And I just want to point out, like I said, it's the 29th, right? It's now been about a month. The deeper we go into this, it's almost like the sunken cost theory, that like the more you got to dig in. If you're Chuck Schumer, you need some big win to say, that's why we asked all these federal workers to suffer like this, because in the end, we got this win. If he doesn't get this, there's been talks about rumblings of a challenge to him and other Democratic senators losing faith in his leadership and stuff like that. It's not crazy to think some Democrats might say, why is Chuck Schumer leading us? If we got it, he just marched us into this box canyon and didn't even get it something for it. So he needs a big win to come out of this. Now, if I'm the Republicans, if I'm the Trump White House or I'm Senate Republicans, I'm like, I will wait as long as it takes. I'm not giving you anything. This is going to end in your surrender. This is going to blow up in your face because this is the only way I can make sure that you never pull this stunt again. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I suppose, they could say the longer this goes on, the more the Republicans have to lose. But the Democrats, again, are the ones who have pulled the trigger on this. And as I said yesterday, if you're not willing to really hurt people who don't deserve it, you really shouldn't start a government shutdown.
Yeah. A couple things here. Back when this all started, I wasn't thrilled with the clean CR because it's still on Biden era spending. And so we're not actually going through regular order. We don't have the spending. But, you've had since January. I'd like to see some of these bills get passed. It's much easier in the House, obviously, than the Senate. But politically, Republicans are doing two very smart things here. One, a clean CR is a lot easier to defend than each of these spending bills, and the Democrats would point out cuts that they think are horrible and hateful and all this stuff. So the clean CR makes it very, very hard for the media to defend the Democratic position here, which they're totally used to. And the fact that they're getting pushback from Jake Tapper and other people who are normally pretty sympathetic to them has definitely thrown them off. And secondly, the really smart thing that Trump, that Mike Johnson, that John Thune are doing, they're not negotiating with themselves. They're just saying, we passed this, here we go. Are you going to approve it and get the government back open or not? Because I remember John Boehner back at the fiscal cliff right after the elections, and I think it was the 2012 elections, and he's like, here's my offer to the president. And Obama's like, nope. And then Boehner comes back with, well, how about this one? Nope. And so it was Boehner basically, watering down his own offer. And so then you got Hakeem Jeffries, who's really done a bad job here, tweeting out yesterday, House Republicans have been on vacation for 5 weeks. MAGA extremists shut the government down and have zero interest in opening it back up. He's being ratioed very much. He's only got 2,000 likes and he's got 4.7 thousand comments, which means you're being ratioed pretty bad on X. Everybody's going, what are you talking about? This is all about the filibuster. House Republicans did their job. There's a reason they're not in town. You guys can't get your act together. So I think Republicans are fighting this in a different way than before, and Democrats don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, every now and then I get the feeling that if you're a Democrat, you're so used to having the mainstream media having your back that you kind of feel like you can say just about anything. It doesn't have to be even remotely close to true, and that they'll cover for you. And we're not seeing that in this case. One of the arguments from Jeffries has been that this is not a clean CR. By the way, your assessment that the clean CR is still at step. But let's point out, this is the same thing Schumer voted for back in March.
Right.
Like this was perfectly okay for Democrats earlier in the year, or at least a sufficient number of Democrats to bring to bring the legislation to the floor. And now the line from Jeffries is, it's a dirty CR. And it's the same thing you voted for. Chris Towner, policy director of Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, nonpartisan organization, says, quote, the House CR is just about as clean of a CR as you could get. They really did not seem to want to rock the boat with it. So they're just going out and saying stuff that just isn't the case, and they're just hoping it fools people. And I don't think it's working. I think it definitely is not working as well as they had. I know there's poll numbers where you can say, more Republicans more Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown than Democrats. Yeah, but if you look at the margin, we're talking like 4 points in this poll, 6 points in that poll. Like, not a significantly, and a huge chunk, as always, are I blame both parties. So I don't see how the Democrats are going to come out of this with this great win, unless at the 11th hour, and I assume we're at the 11th hour, but who knows? Maybe we aren't at the 11th. Maybe this is going to go on to Christmas. But if all of a sudden Republicans say, okay, we'll give you, the either permanent or long-term extension in these, exchange subsidies, which I don't think they're going to do, but you never know with Republicans.
I'd like to make this easy for him. Senator Schumer, you're done either way. You're probably not going to be the leader in the next Congress. You're probably going to end up retiring because somebody on the left is going to challenge you who's a pretty significant threat, and I'm pretty sure your campaign skills are a little rusty. It's not going to go well for you either way. So whether you cave or even if you stand firm as you see it right now, the base still hates you.
We can rip off this Band-Aid slowly, or we can rip off this Band-Aid quick. I think quick's better, but it's up to you. How long do you want the pain to last?
No question. Well, when it comes to financial pain, knowing where you're spending money, knowing where you're potentially wasting money is a big help, and Rocket Money is a big help in helping you get there. You might think you have a solid handle on your budget. Maybe your spreadsheet says you should have a extra $1,000 left over each month, but Rocket Money helps you track every dollar, uncover hidden spending, and take control of your finances. So whether it's subscriptions that you no longer pay attention to, or impulse buys, takeout, whatever it is that you don't think it's a lot, but when you add it up, it is a lot, and it's really dinging your savings, Rocket Money is the way to make sure that you stay on top of this stuff. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings.
If only we could have this for the entire federal government.
Yes.
Rocket Money can analyze your accounts to find out the best time each month to try to put some extra money aside. It'll even try to negotiate lower bills for you. The app automatically scans your bills to find opportunities to save, and they'll even talk to customer service so that you don't have to.
I can just see Russ vote over there if he had a Rocket Money for the whole country. Delete, 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 delete. No, I don't want to keep doing that one. Rocket Money has saved users more than $2.5 billion, including more than $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/martini today. That's rocketmoney.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now, and this one's straight from the Morning Jolt, so a lot of folks won't see this anywhere else. For those who were with us, I guess it was a couple of Fridays ago now, when you came back from India, you told us a lot about the trip to India and how it was project of the Hudson Institute, and you say today in the Morning Jolt that one of the Hudson Institute figures who was on this trip was a guy named Bill Drexel, who has a fascinating history in a number of different ways, has personal ties to family members being persecuted in China, for example. But it's what else he told you that is deeply disturbing. You write, during our trip, Bill told me about his intriguing, unnerving, and perhaps downright disturbing deep dive report that he wrote in the New Atlantis about how the Chinese government and its top companies, some might argue a distinction without a difference, are combining artificial intelligence with their already copious research into genetic engineering. And Jim, I just have to have a little bit of leeriness on there. I'm guessing they're not combining them for the benefit of humanity around the world.
Well, at least not most other humanity. To the benefit of
maybe themselves.
Xi Xinping and the Chinese government's ruling class, maybe somewhere down the road. Bill Drexel, great guy. I had not met him before this trip, and as I've mentioned, you go on these trips. It's kind of like journalist summer camp. You just like to hang out. You're on long bus rides or car rides, talking to each other. And Bill Drexel, I used to say that William F. Buckley was the inspiration for the Dos Equis, most interesting man in the world, because it would be, well, after joining Richard Nixon on his trip to China, I then, sailed across the Atlantic and carved my own harpsichord, which I play. So you've all that. Bill Drexel will begin a story with, so after I smuggled an endangered species boa python, python constrictor, into the United States, and then he'll tell a completely different story. Like, wait, go back to that first part. And yes, Bill Drexel is indeed, his father-in-law was arrested by the Chinese Communist Party earlier this month. He's a religious Christian leader out there in China. Sent a letter, so they're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. And so if anybody's got any leverage with China or wants to sign any of the petitions or things like that, Marco Rubio did issue a statement on this. But Bill Drexel studies China, studies India, and also is very into tech and technology. He wrote this piece in the New Atlantis. My summary really doesn't do it justice. I would urge everybody else to go out there and write and read the entire thing. The title is "The AI Genetics Revolution is Coming," and he's contending we're worrying about the wrong arms race with China. The short version is that, look, we all kind of know the general gist about genetic research and the idea of genetic engineering. In fact, there was someone, it was a Chinese doctor, let's say about a decade ago, maybe a little bit more, genetically engineered, I believe it was triplets, for a couple out there where one of the parents had HIV, and basically did genetic, alteration of the fetuses, the babies, so that they would not have vulnerability to HIV. Now, on the one hand, that's really good, but also making that genetic change also makes you more vulnerable to other diseases. And there are a whole bunch of people who are like, well, first of all, this is like, now you're going in and you're basically trying to edit people's genes and get them the way you want. No, the names of the children were not Khan, Noonien, and Singh. It's a joke for the Star Trek fans out there, for the genetic supermen. But you hear this in sci-fi, the idea of, they're going to breed super soldiers and things are going to be great. Well, in China, they're actually getting closer to this, and they have this totally different attitude towards it, which is really disturbing. Bill writes about this company called BGI, which is China's leading genomic company, right? Buoyed by heavy state support. It's worth noting that there is no such thing as a truly private Chinese company. They basically answer to the state. And they have this argument, go back to 2014, saying, wouldn't it be great if you can make tweaks, that's how they refer to genetic engineering, tweaks in utero that would enhance the performance of our brain, right? And they talked about population quality, right? The president and co-founder of the company forbids his employees from having children with birth defects, which he says would be a disgrace to the company, right? So there's just this attitude of we are perfectly entitled to go in and mess around with people's genes, and we want to get the very best options that we can for this. This is straight up eugenics. But one of the things that Bill talks about is in China, this is nobody debates the ethics of this. Nobody says, is this right? Is this going down a path we don't want to go to? I'll just close with his point. The novelty of emerging biotech capabilities landing first in the hands of Beijing will compound the complexities facing the West if it wants to guard against the temptation to use these technologies abusively. No doubt if China finds itself with an unmitigated first mover advantage in shaping the norms around new genetic capabilities, the impacts would be profound. It is an area with direct national security implications given China's interest in genetically enhanced soldiers and perhaps next generation bioweapons. Now, that should send a chill down your spine during a lot, but the moment Bill said next generation bioweapons, people who know my reporting history will understand that that's the bat signal going up. That is a sign because as you know from the lab leak discussions, again, there is no evidence suggesting that COVID-19 was a bioweapon. But with that said in mind, it is, when you experience a lot of this stuff is called dual use research. The more you understand about viruses, the more you have the kind of knowledge you could apply to creating a bioweapon if you wanted to. My novel Hunting Four Horsemen, which was heavily inspired by all of that reporting, looked at the possibility of could you create a virus that would target certain genes, which is the sort of dream of every genocidal maniac all around the planet. Well, next generation bioweapon, and also while again there's no evidence that COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 was deliberately created as a bioweapon, I don't think it's all that unthinkable that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is either doing bioweapons research or it is in the context of a bioweapons research program that this sort of stuff was developed. So, when you hear about, using AI to analyze the genetic code and study it and be able to get, understandings and insights about it that would take a human brain much longer to get to, you can understand the implications of how this could go very bad very quickly. And as I said, Greg, based on history, well, what are the odds that the Chinese would do something reckless or bad or harmful to everyone else and not realize? And if they ever did make a mistake, of course they would be very upfront about it and let everybody else make proper precautions because, that's just in their nature.
Naturally. And it's not like this is a regime that slaughtered tens of millions of its own people before, trying to create the
Uyghurs, if you're pro-life, China's just like the nightmare. That, you know, abortion is basically extraordinarily common over there, and just this entire attitude of seeing human life as this commodity to be maximized, to be used. Like, basically, how can we weaponize the human genetic code? That's just like, you look at that, you're like, I don't want those people to have a spork. Never mind a CRISPR that can edit genes.
Yeah, exactly right. And it gives you an insight into the mind of the commie. We see it with Russia and much more primitive tactics. They're just throwing bodies out there. They don't care what happens to these people, their own people. They'll just go find more as best as they can. China, more on the high-tech end. They don't care about these people. They're literally trying to build soldiers who will advance their national security ambitions and so forth. And so one of the big differences between freedom and totalitarianism is how they treat their own people, and the difference could not be bigger. All right, well, let's talk about something way better than that, and that is the comfort of bowl and branch sheets. They feel so good. You really can't tell the difference, even the first time when you just open the package. But then you wash them, and they get softer, and they get softer, and they get softer, and they feel so good. They've got those deep pockets that don't pop off the corners, and as soon as we tried them, absolutely loved the bowl and branch sheets. And so if this is the time of year, maybe you're thinking of holiday gifts or maybe just the change of seasons, give bowl and branch a try.
You know, Greg, it makes sense that on this podcast, right after we talk about something that's going to keep everyone up all night, we tell them about wonderful sheets to sleep in. And if you can sleep after thinking about AI being applied to China's genetic research programs, the bowl and branch sheets are breathable to sleep in. So you'll add more layers at night without making your bed feel heavy or hot. They're made with the highest quality 100% organic cotton, not genetically engineered. Organic in durable designs. Available with a new limited edition fall colors for a deeply comforting bedroom. And after that last martini, I think we could all use a little bit more comfort.
Absolutely. So start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Bowl & Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bowlandbranch.com/3martini. Spell that all out, 3martini. That's Bowl & Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/3martini to save 20% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions do apply. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And for that, we do return to the New York City mayor's race. We are now less than a week from Election Day in the Big Apple, as well as New Jersey and Virginia and so forth. But we've talked a lot about Zohran Mamdani in terms of what he said before about defunding and how police are, the greatest oppressors and everything, and wants to end private property. And what he said recently and getting busted on it about his aunt and the hijab on the metro. But he did an interview with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, and Mamdani doesn't even speak here. So this really isn't even about Mamdani. It's about Jon Stewart and his unbelievable fawning over Mamdani. Remember a few months ago, Democrats were like, I don't know, this guy's pretty far out there. I don't know that the party as a whole should embrace him. Then he won the primary. Then others started embracing him. And now pretty much he's the darling of the Democratic Party. And Jon Stewart making a comparison that should probably leave our jaws on the floor.
I wish you all the best. Honestly, I think any New Yorker who looks at someone getting an opportunity, who's representing communities that have not been as represented, a Muslim, a young person, a progressive, a democratic socialist, there are so many different communities that are looking to you, and this, I hate to put it on you, as a bit of a Jackie Robinson moment. And I know that probably wields some weight, but man, oh man, what an exciting opportunity.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best.
Thank you.
An exciting opportunity to destroy the city. Is it really important that we give democratic socialists a lot of chances to lead with their ideology? Jim, it's just amazing how this guy's gone from, I don't think we're ready for this yet, to the toast of the town on the left.
Greg, when he speaks of wielding some weight, I'm pretty sure Jackie Robinson could do more than one bench press. What I find most interesting about this, Mamdani won the Democratic primary. It was kind of a surprise. And, almost no member of the state's Democratic representation in Congress endorsed him, right? And one by one, I don't know about Schumer, but Hakeem Jeffries did, one by one, every other major New York Democrat has fallen in line. And so, it's Jon Stewart holds no prominent position other than host of The Daily Show and a Green Lantern. But he basically represents, if not mainstream Democratic thought, like there's a certain person whose politics and philosophy and probably level of following politics is represented well by Jon Stewart. And with Jon Stewart just gave him the good housekeeping seal of approval right there, right? Which means that there really is no major Democratic opposition to Mamdani. And I would note that Andrew Cuomo he's in this race not because he's been kind of shoved into the role as the voice of centrist Democrats. I think we very much could dispute how much Andrew Cuomo is a centrist Democrat or simply looks centrist compared to Mamdani, which is, not an exceptionally high bar to clear. And just kind of this sense, like Andrew Cuomo's in this because he's obsessed with his political ambitions and doesn't think that a little thing like losing the Democratic primary should be a deterrent from him continuing to try to pursue this office. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't look like Cuomo's going to beat him, and that Cuomo has not really moved the numbers very much. There's kind of this and my colleague Dan McLaughlin has made this interesting point. Back in 2016, Donald Trump comes along, and there are a bunch of Republicans who did not like him and thought this is a populist, nationalist, isolationist direction for the party. We need to unify behind one other option. They couldn't. Ted Cruz had the highest numbers. John Kasich, son of Mailman, said that he was not going to leave until, Rubio was it. Everybody dropped out one state too late. And so you have this guy who is a great challenge to the established orthodoxy of the GOP, and all the other factions could not unify behind one alternative, and the person took over. Kind of feels like a very similar dynamic in the Democratic Party, where you could have found a generic Democrat would probably be doing just fine. Instead, you've got this guy who is really pushing the Overton window out in a whole, not just, I want to, seize the means of production. I want to create state-run grocery stores or city-run grocery stores. I want free buses. I want to arrest Bibi Netanyahu. I have no particular opinion about the future of Hamas. Like all this kind of stuff, is that, and by the way, there's this video that came out last week. Again, Cuomo must have hired the opposition research folks from Ed Gillespie, who said that that every time the boot of the NYPD steps on you, the laces were tied by the IDF. Mm-hmm. Dude, this is I think even Alex Jones is that's a crazy conspiracy theory. That's far out there. This idea that the Israelis are secretly behind NYPD and all that stuff. So there could and should have been the antibodies to deal with this infection of a dangerous new philosophy in the Democratic Party have failed. The immune system did not kick in. There was no rejection of this, in part because he's running 1,000,001 TikTok ads talking about affordability, in part because affordability is a genuine issue for a whole bunch of New Yorkers, and also in part because I think Mamdani speaks for what we call the downwardly mobile children of the elites who are finding that their sociology degrees are not taking them into the living standard they grew used to with their parents. So, as our one-time guest Curtis Sliwa pointed out, this is a Democratic problem. The Democratic Party created this guy. The Democratic Party nurtured this guy. The Democratic Party handed him their nomination, and it's not up to Republicans to save them. But unfortunately, the whole country, and never mind particularly New York City, are going to live with the consequences of this. And you'd think the jet season would be enough suffering for one city.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the bottom line here is that Democrats were leery of him in the beginning because they thought he might not win. And power is what matters most. And now that they think he's going to win, hey, welcome aboard. I think that's going to, even if he wins, they're going to regret that in a major way, and probably fairly soon. So we'll find out. But Jon Stewart, who did so much work for 9/11 first responders and everything, just fawning all over him. Jackie Robinson? Really? Ridiculous. Jim, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast if you don't already, and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Have a terrific Wednesday. Join us again Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.